right, so now we're looking at the other half of the early home styles from the 20th century. Last week we talked about the period revival styles. We went over four different styles. And now we're going to look at the more modern styles, the new ones that have been introduced kind of on the later half of this 20th century. So we're going to be looking at the prairie, the craftsman, also known as the bungalow, international, ranch, contemporary, split level, and the shed. So it sounds like a lot, but we've had a ton of different styles introduced rather quickly. So for the first one, it's a prairie style. Famous architect Frank Lloyd Wright began designing homes in this prairie style. They are multi-million dollar homes. They're very expensive. There is one here in St. Louis that's actually pretty awesome. There's one in Kansas City as well that I think retails for it's like 1.8 million, I think, or 1.6 around there. But you can actually go in and tour it because all the stuff on the inside too is designer and everything like that. With the prairie style in particular, they emphasize horizontal lines, low pitched roofs with an overhanging eaves, and they also had wide porches as well. So here are these horizontal lines that they're talking about. So all through here almost seems kind of like very low to the ground type feel, or like the different stories seem very, very low, but there's those very distinctive horizontal lines. Here's the low pitched roofs or hip roofs as well. So instead of it typically being a lot taller up here, it's kind of like they squashed them down. Same thing with this one. This one's actually almost completely flat. Overhanging eaves would be kind of these parts that jut out here. A roof does it over here. It does it particularly over here in these corners as well. And then this one doesn't have it, but this one for sure does, would be the wide porches on the side. On the interior of them, they tend to have really open floor plans, meaning they don't have a lot of walls up to distinctly mark off the different rooms. So your living room, you could stand in your living room and look into the kitchen, or vice versa, with the dining room thrown in there as well. So they really did open up to one another, and it makes the space feel a lot bigger. The Craftsman, also known as the bungalow, this is really popular here in around in the neighborhood that Hope High is in, and then it is also really popular like downtown as well. Um, Downtown also has a lot of period revivals as well. They have a lot of colonial revivals there, but some of the smaller, older neighborhoods tend to have these homes. It shares many of the same characteristics as a prairie style because it was designed around the same time. These are just a little bit of the smaller scale homes. So they tend to be one story. They have an overhanging roof and they have some type of covered porch in there as well. Sometimes they do open up that attic space. So here you have a gigantic dormer with 5 windows in there. So it wouldn't be shocking if you walked in and there was a little bit of a room up there or there was some type of living space upstairs. So distinctive features, low pitched gable roofs. Some of them have hip roofs, but this one is a gable roof. Decorative beams under the eaves, which is right here. And then either a full or a partial with porches with the roof supported by columns. So again, that's all this. This is a full porch right here because it runs the full length as well. And it's really great because you can actually come outside on nice days and just enjoy the weather, but still have the shade over you. Okay, so this style is known as the international, also known as modernism, also known as functionalism. I like to kind of get you to think about it more as functionalism because that kind of helps you think of the purpose of the homes. So the most known architects of this style are going to be Le Corbusier of Switzerland, Walter Gropius, and Ludwig Mies van der Rohe of Germany. So homes built using this particular style, the international, the functionalism style, they focus on function, hence why they're called functionalism. Basically, they're looking at the usefulness of the actual home itself. So decorative features were avoided because they didn't really provide any use. So as you see in this picture, first of all, this is like an exception to the rule. This is a very fancy house for somebody who has a lot of money. But they a lot of the stuff on the inside, and the interior of the house and everything like that is there's a purpose for everything. You don't tend to have a ton of decorations because decorations aren't serving a use for it. So it's kind of think of it as almost like the introduction of the minimalism trend that we're seeing lately. So if you have some type of built-in dresser or structures like that, that would serve as your decoration, but also it's going to provide you with um, the use behind it as well. It's also going to be used for storage. If you have like an ottoman to rest your feet on, it's going to be a storage ottoman as well. So it's going to serve a purpose. Materials change as well. So architects use a lot of steel framing and other uncommon building materials, kind of like you see here. This is more of a contrasting building materials as well. So the brick and then the wide wood as well. This would usually be like shingles or siding and things like that. And instead, they went with kind of like the full wooden approach to it. Frank Lloyd Wright, also kind of mentioned earlier with the prairie style, he also designed using this style as well. So the ranch is a really popular style, one that you see a lot in neighborhoods that are a little bit newer than the one that surrounds the school. But these houses tend to be a long, low, one story. Some ranches do have basements in them, not necessarily like a living space basement where you can actually go down and make it like a game room or like a TV room or anything like that. It's literally going to be the exposed wall supports, and this is where you're going to store all the decorations for the holidays and things like that. This style started appearing in the 1930s, but it really dominated between the 50s and the 60s. It's preferred by many Americans because of the accessibility and the use of universal design. So anybody in this house, if they had like physical handicaps or anything like that, would do really great in a house like this. There's no stairs, as long as the basement's not there, but there's typically no stairs. They can access the house. It's a pretty open floor plan as well, so you can access throughout the house and things like that, and it not really be an issue. The ranch style is still very popular for today, and we actually have the next style that we're gonna look at is a modified kind of ranch style, that provides somewhat of the same features. It's got its pros and cons from the ranch, but this is one that's still super popular today, and it's used very commonly. So the contemporary one was popular during the 50s to the 70s. Its design features are going to be the wide eave overhangs, the flat or low pitched roofs with gables. So this one right up here, this is a flat roof right up here, and obviously all back through here. Here is one of those low pitched roofs. So it did like to kind of mix and mingle with these different types of roofs. They sometimes had exposed support beams. They had contrasting wall materials, like you see right here. And then they also did an unusual placement of windows. So they put windows kind of like where it made sense, even if on the outside it's not usually symmetrical. So if you guys think back in the early classical revival and the Adams style, it was very much about symmetry. If you had a window on the bottom left, you had a window on the bottom right. And they were really big about that. And here you can see that there's only three windows and they're not three centered windows. And there's actually a gap between these two windows, but not a gap here. This whole wall is a bunch of windows and sliding glass doors. So it was very, very open. And so the unusual placements of windows was a kind of a distinguishing feature behind it. Contemporary also looks a lot like functionalism, and it wouldn't be shocking if the two were interchangeable. They're very similar, so I would agree that they are a bit interchangeable. Okay, so this is a split level. This is kind of a modern, like a modified version of a ranch style. So it's like a half ranch and then half two-story, so to speak. So this became popular in the 50s as well, and it is considered to be that ranch modification. So the house has two or three levels, not technically stories because they don't really have a full flight of stairs. So typically in a house like this, you would walk into the stairs and you would have a couple of options. You could either go downstairs about seven or eight stairs and you would be in some type of family room or a living room. It could be a bedroom down there. And then you would have the garage to your left. Or if you're at the front door, you can choose to go up seven or eight stairs and you would possibly be in the like upstairs over here, or you would be on the main floor of the living room. So this house itself, I take that back. You can actually probably walk in on the living room, and then there's a little hallway about right here that tells you if you want to go up, you're upstairs in the bedrooms, or if you go down, you're in the basement in the garage. Um, this is a really popular style because it gives you the space of a ranch home, but it doesn't require as much of a lot space, which is the lot space is what a house is on. It's the land, so to speak, that the house is on. So you get almost the same amount of space as a ranch, except they decided to stack those two. The other downfall is as well, it's not quite as accessible. So if there are physical limitations that a person has, they would probably want to stay away from a split level and just go for a full ranch. And the last one we're going to look at is the shed style. It started appearing in the 60s. The roof line is what makes the shed really unique because it has kind of, it's almost like somebody took a pitched roof and just cut them all in half and then turned them all different ways. So it is a combination of many different types of roofing styles. So you've got all these different angles here, and then you've got like a flat roof right there. Some parts of the roof may consist of steep pitched roofs, multiple angled roofs, and everything like that. The door is typically very plain and it's hidden along the front of the house. It's almost where you can't even see it walking in. This particular example does kind of defy that a little bit because you can see the front door. It's kind of painted a lighter red, but if you look at the house in general, it is kind of painted more of a muted, earthy brown. So having a red against a brown, it's not going to make it majorly stand out unless it was like a hot red, but this one's a little bit more of a darker red. But other than that, it's usually pretty plain and hidden along the front of the house. So your assignment, you guys have seen it before, a couple of questions about each of the different styles. And then what you're going to do is you're going to find a picture of one of the houses that each functionalist, architect designed, and you're going to paste it below. So make sure you go find that image on the internet and then paste it below. Same thing with Frank Lloyd Wright and Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. Then what you're going to do on this section, here's where you're going to end up needing to use the internet. You're going to choose one of those 4 architects that we went over, and you're going to learn a little bit more about them. So these next few questions are going to be just about that one architect. So who did you choose and why? When and where were they born? And how can their architectural style be seen the most? Or I'm sorry, not how, where can it be seen the most? So what country, what region? Is it here in the US? Is it across the seas? Whatever. Next, you're going to provide a picture of one of their houses, but it has to be different from any of these. So if you decide to choose Frank Lloyd Wright, you put whatever picture you put here, you should not be putting right here. You should find another style. And then tell me what you like least about the style. And then it switches back to talking about the ranch design, the slit level, and then the shed. And that is it. If you have any questions, you guys know to email me.